you can still state your wishes, but that's why I like to call the sheet birth preference sheet versus plan, because plans are inflexible.
Right.
So preparation's important, but also knowing that birth can have some twists and turns.
Welcome back to the Running Whine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Whine Mom. Today's guest is someone who has turned passion into purpose in ways that are truly inspiring. Kristin Revere is the founder of Gold Coast Doulas, co-author of the book Supported, Your Guide to Birth and Baby, and a fierce advocate for women navigating birth and postpartum. From her own personal journey as a mother to becoming a certified B Corp business owner, Kristin has created a space that empowers families with education, empathy, and unwavering support. Whether you're a new mom, a soon-to-be mom, or someone who's ever felt overwhelmed by the transition into parenthood, this conversation is for you. We're diving into birth plans, business pivots, and why community support is everything. So without further ado, let's welcome Kristin. Welcome.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm so thrilled to chat with you.
Yes, we love a good doula, and I'm so excited to get into all of the wonderful things you do. However, to start each episode, we begin with our Whine, Whine, and Win of the Week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, vent about something that's been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So, Kristin, what is your Whine, W-I-N-E of the week?
So I love a nice glass of rosé.
Mm-hmm. It is getting
Nice
into
and
rosé.
light. We're getting to like summertime, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Couple months.
Hopefully. Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, that's great. And what is your WHINE of the week?
So my wine of the week is scheduling and kids sports changes. And so my son was supposed to practice at one field and it got moved around today. So a lot of scrambling.
Yeah, we are not at that phase yet, but I can only imagine as a high school teacher, you see with the sports, like this is canceled, now it's practice, now it's moved. And so I'm like, oh God, I'm not looking forward to those days.
Right. And the busing changes and yeah. So
Well, so
lots of
what is
fun.
what is your win of the week?
So my win is having a new addition to my doula team starting in the next week. So we are very busy with all services, but especially our core focus of overnight newborn care. So I'm thrilled to be able to offer Levita to our clients and, certainly a great addition as partners to our team members.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And I always like to ask my guests, what is one significant challenge you successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today?
So I would say the biggest challenge that we navigated as a business was the pandemic and having to pivot everything from in-person to virtual very quickly. And so we were fortunate to live in a state where doulas were considered essential workers. Like New York, doulas didn't work for a couple years, but we were able to work in our hospitals, stayed home for about a week. So I missed one birth in that time and we were back working, but the newborn care aspect of our business suffered because, of course, with COVID, our clients didn't want to introduce anyone who wasn't immediate family to their newborn. And so we ended up, focusing on getting grants to keep our office space open and moving all of our in-person classes like hypnobirthing. I teach a comfort measures to using Zoom for the first time. And our podcast, Ask the Doulas, that I host was completely in person with experts on the birth and baby space in our local area of West Michigan. And so that allowed us to reach out to experts across the country. And so that was a good pivot for the business. And we also introduced our Becoming a Mother course and did some live launches and tested everything out. So it was a productive time and way to, again, keep the agency open when other doula agency owner friends of mine across the country were shutting down.
Yeah, and I had my daughter in November of 2020, so I found out right before COVID hit that I was pregnant. So like a doula wasn't even something we considered. I'm in Pennsylvania, and
Yeah.
we didn't even know like would my husband be able to be in the hospital. So I could totally see how that really affected that whole business. So I'm very glad that we are on the other side of that, as I'm sure you are as well.
Yes, definitely.
So the running wine mom, we start with a little fitness. What is your favorite way to stay active?
So I like to vary it up as I get bored easily, but we just got a health club membership to a new gym that opened up in our area. So I am focusing more on strength training than running and biking and some of the other fitness forms and yoga that I used to do because I'm in perimenopause and I need to work on bone density. And so joining a gym made a whole lot of sense compared to the free weights and so on that I have.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Lifting is so important, as I always say, not just for building muscle, but just for like daily tasks of picking stuff up. Like we just don't realize how important it is to lift. And then as we get older with our muscles starting to, break down, how important it is to keep it up.
Absolutely. And as a birth doula and postpartum doula, we need strength and
Yes,
do a lot of hip squeezes. So it helps to be fit.
yes. And so how does maintaining your fitness routine contribute to your relationship with mental health?
So certainly if I'm not moving my body, then my stress increases. So I am fortunate to have a dog that needs frequent walks. And when my kids have sporting events and I have that downtime, then I'm trying to walk and find ways like I park as far away from any store as I can. I try to use stairs. So I'm moving my body frequently. And I notice that that affects my mental health in a very positive way.
Love that. So let's get into a little parenthood. Tell us about your family.
So I am happily married. My husband and I just celebrated our 15-year anniversary.
Congrats.
Yeah. And then I have a stepdaughter who's about to graduate college. She's 23. So I'm very proud of her. She's going to be a teacher. She's actually got a classroom already.
Fun.
And yeah, kindergarten. And then my kids are 12 and 14. So sixth grade and eighth grade. So boy and
Okay.
girl.
Awesome. And what do you think you were least prepared for in parenthood?
So I had girls down having my stepdaughter and really understood how to relate. But having a boy was a big change because girls, of course, can entertain themselves, they play differently. And my son is just a ball of energy pretty much from day one. And so it's a little bit different being so used to two girls to have the change, but I love it. I love being a boy mom, and I have three brothers. So I'm used to growing up with boys, but to be a boy mom was a little bit of a change.
It definitely, mine are about 18 months apart, and I had the girl first and then the boy. And when I had the boy, I felt like, what do I do with the boy? I don't know.
Right.
So we're all learning along the way, but it is boys are just so he's so much more affectionate than my daughter is, which is funny. Like he just cuddles but he is energetic. So I'm
Yes,
sure
my son is very affectionate. He's definitely a mama's boy.
yes.
And so
Yeah.
it's so sweet. And then my daughter's growing up and doesn't necessarily want the hugs as much.
Gosh, not ready for that.
Yeah.
So what do you think your parenting style is?
So I would say that I try to give them one who tries to hover, try to give them independence and decision making skills. But I also, with society the way it is, you know, making friends with other parents and keeping an eye on what's going on. And we live in the downtown area of Grand Rapids. And so that's a little bit different than living in the suburbs. And so I do keep a close eye, but yet give them the freedom to explore and make decisions for themselves.
Yeah, that's great. And that's important. You need to, hover a little bit, but give them a
Yeah,
lot of space. It's important for them to grow and, that's our goal as parents, is to get them out of the house eventually to be sustaining. And I think that all helps growing up. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to other parents?
Trust your instincts is my number one piece of advice to doula clients. Is certainly in that early parenting and birth phase is no one knows your body or your baby. And then obviously over time, your children, the way that you do. And if something is off, to say something.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, so let's get into Gold Coast Doulas. So your journey kind of went from political fundraising into founding a doula business. That's definitely a pivot. But what was the defining moment that kind of led you to the world of doula care?
Having kids of my own, of course, was the big change, but I have always been passionate about supporting women. So when I worked in politics, I was involved in a women's PAC, a nonpartisan PAC that helped women feel confident running for office and raising money. And through my work in that PAC, I eventually, it led me to becoming a political fundraiser. And so back then, that was the passion, is women advocating for what matters. And then once I became a mom, everything changed. And women's health care is certainly something that I hadn't noticed in that way. I mean, I was healthy, went to annual exams, but when you're seeing your doctor frequently and you're advocating for your health, I was advanced maternal age. So had my first pregnancy at 36. And
Okay.
so I was already put in that high risk category, and really found that there weren't a lot of options in my community. I had to do a lot of research and ended up, changing providers. My friends had children earlier in life. And so as they were giving me resources, the classes they took didn't exist. Their doctors might have retired. And it was really a lot of, scrambling to build my dream team of experts. And so when I had my daughter, I ended up having a lot of twists and turns, very healthy pregnancy up until 37 weeks. And I was put on bed rest, signs of preeclampsia. And then I ended up getting induced at 39 weeks with preeclampsia. And my daughter was in the NICU for 4 days. And I avoided a surgical birth, avoided a lot of interventions. Honestly, I didn't end up needing an epidural or Pitocin or anything, but it was still quite the experience to advocate for myself. I didn't know what doulas were until my son was born, when I hired doulas for his birth. And so, yes, so it was a lot to go through that myself, having read, of course, about policies surrounding women's health and talking to friends. But yeah, it really opened my eyes. And so after my daughter was born, I struggled with feeding, took all the classes, Lamaze and a breastfeeding class. And I thought as a planner, I could plan my way into perfect early parenting and the bonding with rooming in with my baby and breastfeeding. And when she was in the NICU and going back and forth and pumping when I wanted to breastfeed, it was all a lot. So I got into advocacy and helped create a breastfeeding rally in my area, had elected officials that I knew speak at it, and I met doulas there. And so by the time I was pregnant with my son, they were the first call I made. I told my husband, he was on board with it. He didn't want to feel replaced. So there was a little bit of discussion with that, but he understood why I wanted someone else there to support in labor and certainly in pregnancy. And so, yeah, it was an amazing experience. And even though that birth didn't have interventions, I went into labor on my own. It's my due date, and it was quick and easy. They were barely there, but it was 100% worth it. And so I started teaching classes through their collective. And then my students wanted me to be their doula. So it was a slow transition. I thought, okay, I might as well get trained. And as a hobby, I could take a client or two a year that I really connected with in my 8-week classes. And then I went to a training in Florida, took my whole family with me, and fell in love with the work. I had some reservations. I don't necessarily love bodily fluids, or at the time didn't love being in hospitals. And with my first birth that I attended, I found so much meaning in being with women in this vulnerable time. I've always been an empathetic individual. And so I found that I could give families that peace and calmness in any situation, whether it's traumatic or a home birth that's very, picture perfect to what maybe a client envisioned.
So, for those who are unfamiliar, how would you describe the role of a doula and how does it differ from other birth professionals?
So doulas are non-medical support, and there are many different types of doulas. So I was describing birth doulas. We support in labor, in the hospital birth centers, and there is a misconception that a doula is a midwife. We are not. A midwife is a medical professional who's responsible for the life of the mother and the baby the way an OB would be. And we are more responsible for physical support, so position changes, whether a client has an unmedicated birth or an epidural, and then doing things like labor massage and counter pressure and coaching and giving resources if they need to make decisions. We can give information. So, yeah, so it is a much different role in the coaching or physical support. And so, yes, in doulas, again, depending on the doula, some have niches and they may only attend a home birth.
Hmm.
But at Gold Coast, we support planned surgical births, home births, hospital, clients who want an epidural right away, or someone who wants an unmedicated birth. So it
Yeah.
varies.
And I was reading that your company has been recognized as Certified B Corporation. What does this certification mean to you, and how does it really reflect your company's values?
So it means so many different things because I didn't want to have a nonprofit arm. I felt very passionate about the work that we do has always been done in different cultures, but it was unpaid labor. Like
Yeah.
could be servant, could be friend, family member. And so it is important to have it be respected in the business community and have my doulas make what they are worth. And so sliding scale or free services or something that I considered starting a nonprofit, having worked in the nonprofit sector. But when I came upon B corporations, the movement is pretty big in my community, specifically in Michigan. There are about 31 certified B Corps in Michigan, and the majority of them are in West Michigan. I think there's at least 18 of us here. And so I learned a lot about not only the give back component to B corporations, but also the environmental footprint and that focus on being good for your community, good for your employees or contractors in my case, and good for the environment. And so I learned about tracking my carbon footprint and offsetting emissions in my business. My office that I'm sitting in right now, where the lights turn off frequently, is energy efficient and a LEED certified building. So knowing that we are doing good not only for our clients, but even selecting vendors who are women owned or diverse owned businesses who are local. So I buy all of my flyers and business cards from a local printer who happens to be a B Corp and woman owned versus going to Vistaprint, for example.
Sorry. Um,
No.
I absolutely love that because I feel as though so many people talk about how they want to support X, Y, and Z, but they don't really, reflect that. And it's so refreshing to hear, companies out there that are supporting local, supporting women, supporting diverse businesses. And so that's going to kind of lead me to my next question is you've built a team of doulas and sleep consultants. So what qualities do you look for when bringing someone onto your team to ensure that your, business is what you want it to be?
Yes. So for me, honesty is everything and trust. And so I have extensive intake forms and interviews to make sure that whether they're a doula or an educator, a lactation consultant, sleep consultant, if they join the team, that they are on board with the core values of Gold Coast Doulas and that I find them to be honest and full of integrity. And so, in professionalism, in a career where it's often seen as a hobby,
Hmm.
taking it seriously and knowing that when you're on call for a family, whether you're a birth doula or plan to be there after baby is born, that it's a big commitment. And I've missed my kids' birthdays and had, disappointments in my family because I was supporting someone else. So I want my team to understand what they're in for before joining.
Love that. That's great. And you have mentioned the importance of community support during the postpartum period. How did your own support system influence your recovery and your parenting journey? And how do you want that reflected in your how your doulas and sleep consultants work?
Yeah, so when I had my kids, postpartum doulas were not really a big thing. So there were a couple birth doulas that were also postpartum doulas, but overnight doulas were not really an option. So there's a nonprofit in my community called Moms Bloom, and they bring volunteers. So they're not trained postpartum doulas, but they come in and they do some of the tasks that our daytime postpartum doulas would do, like folding some laundry or getting some snacks together or holding the baby so you can take a shower or a nap. And so I utilized Mom's Bloom for both of my recovery points because my husband had to go back to work right away after both of my children were born. Like, so I'm talking about like right as soon as we got back from the hospital, he was back to work full time. And so I really relied on having the company of a volunteer and the support and hired lactation consultants to come to my home with both kids. I had different challenges. My son had a tongue tie that I needed to get revised. And so there was some discomfort with breastfeeding with him. And then my daughter having been in the NICU and used to being formula fed and then pumped milk fed, trying to breastfeed her was a big struggle. So having that lactation support multiple times in home was key. And then, of course, I had family members and friends bring food and offer to help. I had a friend that took my daughter to a school carnival
Love that.
and gave her some time after my son was born. And it was the biggest gift. So now I think of her act of kindness when my friends have kids and like thinking about the older kids who are feeling a little bit left out and how entertaining them can be a big gift.
That's awesome. And really, that was one thing that I was not prepared for is the postpartum just shock of, this baby and all the things you have to do. And so having a community and, family was really so, you know, it meant so much in my postpartum. And I'm like, people who don't have this, like, how do you even survive with it? Even just a meal drop off was something that was, so important.
It is absolutely.
So, in addition to all of this, you co-authored, supported your guide to birth and baby. What inspired you to write the book, and what do you hope that readers take away from it?
So I have a copy of the book right here.
Love it.
And the book came out of our online course. So Becoming a Mother. And we have a workbook for the course. And so the chapters in the book are essentially modules in the course, but having it in book format makes it more accessible to more individuals that could not necessarily afford a course or don't have the time to invest in going through all of the modules and the support that comes with it online. And so the book is available in audiobook. We recorded it ourselves.
That
So anyone, those moms to be on the go or seasoned moms can listen
That's all
as
I
they're
do is listen.
driving. I know,
I
I'm a
listen to
big
books
audiobook
nonstop.
fan.
So that's really big to have that on audio.
Yeah, and then it's on ebook version and then the paperback and hardcovers. But almost
Congrats.
been out a year.
That's amazing. And speaking of your becoming a mother, of course, you kind of briefly spoke about it, but it emerged during the pandemic. How did this virtual offering evolve, and what kind of feedback have you received from participants?
So they love, especially in the pandemic, they love that community of other moms around the country going through the same thing. And with the course, there's lifetime access. So it's been beautiful that I'll have students in the course with their first pregnancy and then they get pregnant again. So they leave the course for a bit and come back.
Love
And
it.
especially want my former business partner who co-authored the book and started the Ask the Doulas podcast with me. Alyssa Veneclaus is a sleep consultant with us at Gold Coast. And she has so much great advice, not only for infants, but those toddler sleep regressions or the change with introducing a new baby and how that affects sleep or travel in sleep.
Hmm.
So students will hop on as they need us, and we'll also take breaks from the course in between. So it's been
Yeah,
lovely to follow people through different journeys.
that's amazing. And of course, you're still involved in advocacy in March of Dimes and the Preeclampsia Foundation. What drives you to continue the commitment to different initiatives while you're doing everything else?
So I feel it's so important to use our voices and our
Hmm.
time and also our money to make the change.
Hmm.
And as a B Corp, we designate 2% of our net profits to causes serving low income women and children. So we donate to some of those groups, but I also am involved in advocacy in national and statewide groups. And we give 5% of our time to those same causes serving low income women and children specifically.
Wonderful. So we kind of just talked about all of the things that you do. And so my next question is going to be about burnout because it is always a concern in caregiving professions. How do you prioritize self-care and ensure sustainability in your work?
It's so important in caring professions, whether it's teaching or work as a doula, to take time. And so I intentionally take time off birth call, and it allows me to get the rest I need without being afraid that my phone might go off and I miss a birth, and to be able to go on family vacations and attend conferences that are important. But when I started Gold Coast, I launched the shared call model in my community. We were the first doula agency also in our community. And so giving doulas the option to have a birth partner and share call equally so they don't burn out, because the average length of time that someone is a birth doula specifically is 3 years and then they burn
Wow.
out. And so we've been able to, I have some team members who've been with us 8 years, and some have a baby, take time off, and come back. And so we support whatever their choices are. Supporting women extends to the contractors, it's not just our clients. And so making the work sustainable is very important to us. And with postpartum doulas, especially doing overnights, having that lack of sleep and caring for someone's baby, even if the doula is resting in those resting times for the baby, it's not sustainable to continuously work, say, 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
And so we also have partners with families that are comfortable with it. We might have more than one doula,
Hmm.
but we communicate and act as if there's one doula. So it's pretty seamless, and our clients have been happy with that. So again, I'm able to have doulas last in the career that they care about much longer than the national average.
That's amazing. What a great way to do that so that people can continue to do what they love. So if you could have a dinner party with any three influential figures in the birth or parenting world, Who would they be and why?
So hard to pick from many amazing people, but Dr. Elliot Berlin is one of my favorite people. He is the Informed Pregnancy podcast host and created a streaming platform. And he also wrote the foreword to my book.
Oh,
And
cool.
we've collaborated many times, but he's in California. We've never met in person. So I would love to be at a dinner with him. And certainly there are so many legends in the birth and baby space that it's hard to really nail that down. But Ricky Lake would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it would, the business of being born it was one of the documentaries I watched during pregnancy and impacted how I saw advocacy in that space. And her partner, Abby Epstein, who also co-directed a lot of different projects with her. So I think the three of them would be amazing. And
Cool.
if I could bring Drew Barrymore into it, then that would be
She could
awesome.
like host it.
Yeah, she could host it, but she has a great book on her motherhood journey. I want to say it's called Wildflower. I
Okay.
have it at home, but I'm almost positive that that's her book. So it'd be fun to talk to her about parenting.
Yeah, that would be I would come. I'll come in the background and watch that dinner party. I'd love it. So, what is one unexpected item in your doula bag that always comes in handy, or maybe someone would think, why do you even have that?
So for me, it's snacks. I don't know how long I'm going to be at a birth. If I don't eat, I get grumpy and I don't want to get lightheaded. I always think of partners having snacks and talk to them about preparing. But for me, hydration during a long birth, or I've stopped doing in-home postpartum support to be able to run my agency years back. But when I used to, making sure I had snacks and was drinking water to sustain myself. But for my clients, my most prized birth bag item would be my rebozo.
I don't
So
know what that is.
it is a Mexican shawl. So you could use a heavier scarf.
Okay.
And I use it for positioning and comfort measures for labor and do some different, there's different techniques that can loosen up ligaments and can help baby turn. And so I like to utilize the rebozo if labor allows it. There's not always time for it.
I think I've definitely seen them. I just didn't know that was what it was called. But now I know.
Yeah.
So for new or expecting parents listening, what's one piece of advice you wish you had received during your early parenting days?
So I would say preparation is important, but being flexible. So I know with my first pregnancy, I had that 4-page birth plan and I wasn't as flexible. So with my second pregnancy, I had a preference sheet and just boxes you check off, and it was very straightforward. And having worked with many labor and delivery nurses and becoming friends with OBs and midwives over the years, I found that going in with a bit of flexibility is helpful and making it simplified. You can still state your wishes, but that's why I like to call the sheet birth preference sheet versus plan, because
Mm,
plans are inflexible.
right.
So preparation's important, but also knowing that birth can have some twists and turns.
Yeah, I love that birth preference sheet because I've heard I didn't have a birth plan. I'm like, what? Well, my daughter was breached, so that was kind of a
Yeah.
no-brainer for what was happening. She wasn't flipping. But yeah, I feel like so many of my friends were just like so concerned that their birth plan wasn't going to go as planned. And it's like, if you just reword it to preference, then I feel like it takes so much stress off because it's like, yeah, I would rather do this, but like, if I can't, then it's not
Then
like
I'm flexible
you are
and yeah, we'll
fail,
go
you
with the
failed.
flow. Yes.
So looking ahead, what are your hopes for the future of doula care and support for families?
I'm hoping that some of these fertility benefits that I'm so thankful for right now, that include not only birth doulas, but day and overnight postpartum support, continue. So,
Hmm.
Carrot, Progeny, Maven are all great examples. People are registering for doula services and other services, not just things. And family members are gifting doula support, which is amazing.
Hmm.
And we'll see if general insurance covers birth doulas down the road. Medicaid is a big step in that process, and Michigan is one of the states that are Medicaid covered. Seeing some of the changes in the insurance space has been very inspiring to make it more accessible and not as much of a luxury service that
Hmm.
doulas have perceived to be in the past.
I love that. Well, I think that's a great place to end it. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. Kristin, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your wisdom, and your story with us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Samantha.
Yeah, I know so many listeners are walking away feeling more informed, supported, and seen. To everyone tuning in, if you love this episode, be sure to check out Kristin's books. I will link it and all the incredible services at Gold Coast Doulas. As always, thank you for spending this time with us on The Running Wine Mom. Don't forget to subscribe, leaving a review if you love it, and share this episode with a mom who needs to hear it. You can follow me on Instagram at the Running Wine Mom _. And Kristin, where can the listeners find you?
We are on pretty much all of the social media platforms as Gold Coast Doulas. So Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, you name it, we are there.
Awesome. And I will link that as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.
Cheers.